Welcome to the show. Hi, I'm Randy Jeffers, and we are live from the entertainment capital of the world, Las Vegas, Nevada. Well, we have a really special show today. We have with us Stephanie Martino, who is a Las Vegan, I guess, and but soon to be a Zambian missionary to Zambia. So, Stephanie, tell us a little bit about yourself, if you would.
Sure. Yeah, thank you so much for allowing me to share and to speak. I'm from Las Vegas, like you said, and I'm getting ready to head off to Zambia, which is in Africa, where I will be doing mission work there and using my experience here in Las Vegas to share the gospel, share the love of God with people there in Africa. But my background is hotel background, working on the Strip for 7 years.
Of course, you're from Las Vegas.
Yes.
You have to know that, right?
Exactly.
So Zambia, where in the world is Zambia?
Yeah, it is in the continent of Africa. A lot of my family and friends are finally understanding that Africa is not a country.
Right.
There's lots of little countries, and so Zambia is actually in the southern part of Africa. So it's a few countries above South Africa.
Yeah, well, I want to hear about Zambia and what it looks like and what the people are like. But before that, let's talk about your mission. You know, you're there for a reason, right? And and you're sort of concealing your mission a little bit by working in the hotel industry there, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So tell us how that's going to work.
Yeah, it's quite different, actually. I have previously worked in South Africa for 2 years as a very formal overseas international missionary. I was sent with an organization that sends missionaries all over the world. This time around, though, I'm being called to do it a little bit different, and we call it like workplace missions, where you're basically on mission where you're working. And so in my eyes, there's not a whole lot of a difference between if I was to take another hotel job here and just be missional, looking for ways to serve and to help and to love on people, versus what I'll be doing in Zambia. I'm just going to be accepting a job there, and I'll be working and leading people in a hotel setting while being on mission, while focusing on how to love the people there, how to love the locals, how to share the gospel through the workplace.
So that's a really good definition of a missionary, I think. Do you want to add something? How would you define being a missionary?
Yeah, in the church here in the West, at least, we're always being told that you can be on mission wherever you are. So we're all missionaries, and we hear that, but we don't always maybe live it out or believe it for ourselves. And so for me, just being a missionary is just answering the call that God's put on all of our lives to go. The Great Commission says that we're to love people and share the gospel with those who don't know it. So for me personally, being a missionary is to just seek out people who need to be loved, people that need to be served in any way that I can provide, and to just be God's hands and feet, to be working, to be busy.
God's hands and feet. I love that.
Yeah.
So, but why Zambia? How did that happen?
Yeah, it's kind of a crazy story, because Zambia is not, I wouldn't say that Zambia is like my destination of choice necessarily.
It's not something you would just know.
It's not, pick, right? I mean, if I prayed hard enough, I would probably end up in like Hawaii or somewhere tropical. But Zambia actually just from 2013 became something that I kind of knew I would end up there. In 2013, I went with my church, Hope Church, locally here, and we went in August of 2013, and we traveled to Zambia, and we were only there for like 10 days, but while I was there, God started putting missions on my heart, and I met another family from Hope, actually, that was serving in South Africa, and when I interacted with the husband, he said, "Hey, you have background in hotel. I know these two guys that are living here in Zambia that are thinking about opening a hotel." And I didn't really think much of it, and just went along, doing what I was doing there in Zambia. And I came home and ended up preparing to leave full time to go to South Africa and serve. And I never really thought about that comment that he made. And in 2014, it came up again. And the same guy said, the hotel is actually, it's a thing and you need to get involved. Like, I could see you being involved. And again, I was not focused on that. I was focused on getting to South Africa, and I never really put much thought into it. And so 2015 came along the next year, and I was in Zambia serving with our team from Hope Church here in Las Vegas, and I was joining them because I had already been on the mission field. And I'm sitting in this home where we're being hosted as a team, and I'm sitting there at the breakfast table before anyone else comes down, and it's me and the guy that's hosting us, and he starts talking, and I start to think, okay, his story sounds a little familiar. And sure enough, he says, "Are you the girl from Las Vegas that used to work in a hotel?" And I said, yes. "Are you the guy that's opening a hotel in Zambia?" And he said, "Yep, I am." And that's how it all kind of came together, from 2013 all the way to now. And so 2016, I was getting ready to come home after being away for 2 years, and I was visiting this guy and his family, and he offered me a job to come work alongside him. He said, "Pray about it. We're going to be praying about it, and if the Lord wants you to come, then we believe it'll happen." So
my goodness,
here we are.
A bunch of coincidences, but maybe they really weren't coincidences.
Not so much, yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm learning to acknowledge those things. I have a tendency, like you heard, to just kind of be like, okay, sure, but not to actually pursue it. So yeah, sometimes the Lord chases us a little.
So you're going to be at this hotel, and what town are you in?
The town is called Kabwe, and it's about 2 hours outside of the main capital city where you fly into.
Okay, so is it pretty rough journey, those 2 hours?
It's a bumpy road. Yeah. It's actually, so the main road that you take from Lusaka, where you land, to Kabwe, where I'll be living, it's actually a main highway. It's not really a highway as we would know it, but it's the main road. You could actually take it from South Africa all the way up to Egypt.
Wow.
Of course, it looks differently in different countries as you ride along that road, but it's a main road in Zambia. It is quite bumpy. It's come a long way since 2013. There's a lot of police stops and a lot of traffic. It's one way, so the traffic can be a little rough. But yeah, it's about 2-3 hour drive.
So do you have to take a little spare change along the way for those police stops?
Yeah, that's always a tough thing in a place like Zambia, actually in Africa in general. I stand out a bit in Zambia, and so the chances of getting pulled over and checked by the police is very common. And so you just have to, I think, going in, take your stand of if you want to give in to bribes or not, and how you want to, relate to the locals and things like that. So it is a possibility that they'll pull you over, and you may get a ticket for something that maybe you shouldn't have, or I'm not sure yet. I'll figure it out as I go along. Yeah.
So what's the country like? Can you tell us a little bit about what it looks like, what the people are like, or are there wild animals running around?
Yeah, most of my family and friends, when I came back from South Africa, they were wondering how many lions and stuff were roaming around my house. It's not like you would assume. It's definitely not like the Lion King or anything. But Zambia, so Africa in general, you could drive 1 hour and be in one environment and be in a completely different, like in Lusaka where you land, it's a city. So they have a mall where you can go shopping and a movie theater and see the most recent movies that are out. But then you drive 2 hours and you're in Kabwe, and it's 1 or 2 grocery stores, and there's not a whole lot else. There's little mom and pop shops, but it's pretty small. So the city of Kabwe, or the town of Kabwe, is a lot of residential. There's a lot of outdoor markets. There's a couple of grocery stores, dirt roads, some paved, mostly not, and a lot of people. I don't know the number of people, but a lot of people living in some of these pockets outside of town that are in these villages. And so you have homes that are built up that have running water, and then you can drive down the road and there's homes that don't. So you get kind of a mixture.
Yeah, I would imagine the poverty level is pretty rough, right?
Yeah.
What are some of the worst things that you've seen there with the people?
I would say in Zambia, I haven't gone to explore too much compared to some of the other places I've been, but we have been into some of the villages where there is a lot of poverty. There's a lot of prostitution and sex trafficking, a lot of widows who don't have support, and so they're getting support from ministries and organizations that are there to help them. So you kind of have a mixture, but the poverty for sure. There's families going to walk miles to get their water, and it's a whole mix of things, but there's definitely the issue of poverty. I would imagine it's
You know, it's always amazes me, people like you that do these amazing things, really, adventurous things, but you're doing it out of faith, really, right?
Yeah.
You're just taking a step of faith, and that's really something that a lot of people think about doing, and they think about, they'd love to do something like that, but very few people ever really do it, and you're one of the rare people. And what made you do that?
It's so funny that you describe it that way, because I definitely used to be, at least like 3 years ago, the most unadventurous, most calculated person, and I was raised not really to take too many risks like this, and very outside of my comfort zone. But that just shows you the Lord at work, because it's not me, it's definitely Him. In 2013, when I started feeling like, okay, I should move to Africa, I had this very strong sense that I'm not sure where I'm going or what I'm going to do, but I should pick up and go. And that is definitely not something for me. That's not typical of me. But I looked at my circumstance, and I was able to go. So for me, it was more about saying yes, putting that yes on the table, and then being open to hear that call. So I had a moment where I just said, wherever you want me, whatever you want me to do, I'm saying yes. And He did. He called me to Africa, but it was not the plan at all. And I was single, working at a hotel here on the Strip, and had a good income. I didn't have car payments or a mortgage, things like that holding me down. So in a sense, I felt very open and free to be able to pick up and go. Yeah.
And so here you are, heading to Zambia.
Yes.
And when do you leave?
May 20th, I will be leaving Las Vegas and making my way to Zambia. I have a few stops along the way, visiting family, and I will actually land in Zambia on the 9th of June.
Okay, well, let's do a little quick commercial for you, because, you're, like we mentioned, you're doing this out of faith, and, I would imagine that the income there is probably not going to be a whole lot, and it's going to be a little tough going.
Yeah.
And to do good things, sometimes it takes money, right?
Yeah, and it's definitely not my get-rich-quick scheme at this point in life. I'm going into something where it's the value in the experience is so much greater. Actually, it's hard for a lot of people to get that it's even more than whatever the money could possibly be.
Yeah.
It's that value of a unique opportunity to go and build a hotel from the ground up with this team, and to be part of that is more than the money at this point. So yeah.
Well, it's very exciting. But for those that are listening right now that say, hey, I just sort of feel like I need to help this young lady and help maybe support her a little bit. I suppose any amounts would be welcome.
Yes, yeah, small and large would be great.
Yeah.
A lot of people have supported me, which is amazing, because I get to see the love and support from people, but also from the Lord, just how He provides when really there's nothing that I had to do with it, and they all build upon each other. So I've had, the smaller monetary amounts and the bigger, and they all add together, so
Sure.
Any amount, yeah.
So if someone wanted to contribute to you, how would they do that?
At this point, it's me going. So they can contact me via email, and we can discuss options on how that is possible.
Sure.
And my email is Stephanie, STEPHANIE .Martino, MARTINO @outlook.com. And there's ways to give through the church to me, and they can do a little tax write-off that way. So.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things I know about you is that everyone that knows you, at least that I know about, they just think you are unbelievably great, and a lot of that comes from having a servant mentality, and actually not just having that, but actually walking the talk, right? And I think that's what people love about you. But how'd you get that way?
Yeah.
What makes you such a special person?
That is a tough question. I'm trying to keep it humble. I don't know. It's
no humility. Let's have the real truth.
Let it flow free.
Tell us how great you are.
I think with the servanthood, that's something always I've kind of been ingrained to want to love on people. I remember thinking, how can I what job can I do that will allow me just to like give to people. I always loved giving gifts and remembering things about people and serving them when they least expected, and I never could figure out what that was, and I didn't get that answer in the hotel industry, honestly. But yeah, through mission work, through being able to full-time serve people, I was able to kind of sharpen that gifting and that skill. It's hard to say one thing and to actually act it out and live it out, and that's something that I discovered when I came home 8 months ago from the mission field after being away from my family and friends for 2 years, and then coming back and feeling like a completely different person. My eyes were a bit more opened, and I began this trust journey where I had to actually live out my trust. You know, I can say, oh, I trust God to provide, but to actually have to be in a place where I had to trust that the Lord would provide was huge for me, and it was tough. It's hard. I think it's one of those things that you almost have to just practice. You have to practice trusting Him. You have to practice loving people, practicing how to serve them as well. And when I came home, I didn't have an income. I didn't have a job I was coming back to. I wasn't sure if the thing with Zambia would work out. So there's a lot of these areas where I could then put my feet, to that walk and say, okay, I'm saying I trust God, but how am I going to live that out? And to really be modeling that for other people was really tough. So I think practice and always constantly checking my motives, why even serving people and loving people, like you said, that could be for us sometimes, and to really practice. And a big lesson for me was, what are my motives when I serve someone? Am I doing it because I feel like I have to, and it's like I'm grudgingly, helping someone, or is it because I see their value and I see how I can love on them and how the Lord can work through that? So just checking my heart and my motives, I think, really helps.
Yeah, I would think so. Tell us a little. You were born here.
I was born in New York, actually, but I was raised here. I think in like second grade I moved out here. So
really?
Yeah, I'm a Las Vegan.
Yeah, there's not too many. People come from all over to be here. Yeah. And most people come to visit, right, and then leave. But
exactly.
What was it like growing up in Las Vegas?
Yeah, it's all I knew. I knew up until 2014. It's all I knew. So I enjoyed it. People I found when I was working at the front desk, a lot of the guests I would interact with, they would say, "Where are you from?" And I would say Las Vegas, and they're like, "No, but where? Like, where do you go out? Do you live at the border and then you drive in?" I'm like, "No, like 20 minutes away. We live right outside the Strip." And for people, it's hard to understand. But yeah, it's just normal, school and family and.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize there's a big city here.
There's dog parks and schools and movie theaters, and it's just
actually
normal.
A large city. Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, it's not just the Strip. But so you have this incredible Christian mission that you're departing on. So obviously you've been this amazing Christian all your life.
Obviously. No, I got saved. I became a Jesus follower when 2010. So it's only been a few years for me, and really honestly for the first couple of years it was more of me walking through the motions, a lot of me saying that I was a Christian but not really having that life change. I was still going out with my friends in the same way I was before I was saved, and not like there was anything too bad about that, but I was still maybe not walking that talk, and it took me a couple years to fine tune. I didn't have anyone really as a great example of how to follow Christ and how to make that shift from old to new.
So how did you do that? What, did someone come along? Did you have a mentor?
Yeah, so it took me until 2012 when I ended up at Hope Church here in Las Vegas that I really started to get plugged in to the church and connected with people, that change happened, because for the first few years of my Christian life, I was doing it alone. Like, I would go to these large churches where you could easily sneak in and then sneak out. No one would even know who you are. I didn't know who anyone was because I wasn't connecting, and we're not made to do life alone. That's something I had to realize. I had a lot of walls up towards people, and I was living alone. I would do this kind of stuff alone, but I wasn't connecting. So in 2012, when I connected at Hope, I got plugged in, and I sought help because I was really going through this weird time of almost like an identity crisis in my early 20s of saying, I know what I want to be because I'm seeing what the Bible says and the example of Jesus, and I'm not making that. I'm not hitting that target. And so almost having this crisis of like, who am I? What am I supposed to be doing? Where should I be? Missing something. And so when I connected with people at the church, when I started living life together with people in a weekly small group where we got to do life together, and I was able to serve the other people at our church through the choir and through serving with children, that I started making those relationships with people. People started to know who I was. I got to see who they were, and I got to really grow in my relationship with God, and that's really where everything changed for me.
It really is about relationships, isn't
It is. You can't do it alone, and as much as you want to, it's not healthy for us. So it's good to find like those one or two people to really latch onto, and you end up blessing them and they bless you, and it's kind of like this give and take, and it's equal. Yeah.
So you've had some really special people in your life, I would assume. Any that you want to talk about or mention?
Lots of older women in my life have come around me, which is amazing. And not only here in Las Vegas, but also when I've traveled into Africa. One of my biggest prayers was for the Lord to put people in my life that would resemble a community of like just loved ones, and He really provided that. And then coming back over these last 8 months, He really provided a lot of new relationships, women that I get to serve with. I've had the joy of getting to serve with True ID, and True ID, their founder Joanna is just amazing, and she's become a really great mentor in my life because she's just modeling what it's like to follow Christ. And it's not something that I just learned back in 2012 and then I'm done. Like, it's a constant learning and growing process. And so women like Joanna and a lot of other women who have done mission work, a lot of women who are mothers that set that example of what it's like to be a Christ follower.
Now, you mentioned a church here locally that's called Hope Church.
Hope Church, yeah.
And that has changed your life?
Yeah, they're amazing. I mean, you can't build your faith on a body of people because, we're people and we let each other down and we make mistakes, but really as a family, I feel like I've kind of just fit in that body of people, and they're focused on kingdom work. They're focused on expanding His kingdom and sharing the gospel, the truth about who God is with not only the nations, which is amazing because that's where I feel called to, but also locally here in Las Vegas and in the West and all over. So they've become a family. Yeah.
Let me ask you a question. And this is a simple question, but it also could be very complicated. We have people who are listening in to us that from all walks of life and from all kinds of places, all over the world, actually. And not all of them, some of them probably don't even know when you talk about being a Jesus follower, being a Christian, they don't know what that means. Can you give us just a little, just touch on that just a little bit, if you would?
Yeah, it's so important to know, and I think sometimes as Christians we can have like this Christianese language that we speak, and people don't even really know what you're talking about, and so it is good to clarify some of those things. And for me, I stopped calling myself a Christian and started calling myself a Jesus follower, especially traveling through Africa. There's so many, if you're white, it's assumed that you're a Christian. And that can have many different assumptions and faces and stuff. And so for me, being a Jesus follower is accepting what Jesus did for us. So, and then living my life following Him. So the big thing to know is just that we have sin in our life. Like, we make mistakes, and you can see that even in little kids. If kids are just born and grown up and they lie, like you'll see kids lying about little things, and it's like, where did that come from? And it's just sin that we inherit when we're born, and we're born into this sin nature. And because God is so holy, He created us, and He's so holy, that sin that we have naturally just separates us and Him. And the answer that God had for us in His love for us was His Son Jesus. And through Jesus's perfect life, He lived and died so that we could have a relationship with Christ, so that we can follow and have a relationship with Him. And when I accepted that sin, and then accepted the love that God had for me, and accepted the gift that He gave of Jesus, I was able to have a relationship. That bridge was closed, and I was able to approach God. And then from that, I'm able to love and serve people.
Wow, amazing. Well, let's give your email out one more time for those that didn't get it the first time.
Yeah, it's stephanie.martino@outlook.com.
And Stephanie's spelled the way that most people do.
Yeah, STEPHANIE.Martino, MARTINO.
At Outlook. At Outlook.com.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so if somebody's watching us now and they say, hey, I really like that girl, I want to help her,
Yeah.
or maybe I want to go to Africa, maybe I want to go visit her, or maybe I
Yeah.
want to find out more about how I can be a missionary, or maybe I want to
Yeah.
find out about Hope Church, or
Exactly.
or how I can be happy like Stephanie is, any of those things, I guess, right?
Yeah, and it's a good way to communicate with me, and I'll be sending up updates about once every month or 2 months about what's happening in Zambia. So it's a way to be added to that update list to receive, updates on what God's busy doing, what the people are busy doing there, and you never know. I mean, my heart really is to challenge people here locally, since we are such a huge. We're like the mecca of hospitality. So to get hospitality professionals from Las Vegas and put a team together and travel to Zambia to work with me at the hotel and to invest and pour into those locals would be like my idea. I mean, my perfect idea, yeah. That'd be great.
I definitely want to be on your list. I want to keep following you, see what's going on, and I'm sure everybody will want to send you an email and get on that list.
Yeah, that'd be great.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's go back to Africa now and talk to us about what a typical day is like in Africa.
It's it doesn't sound like a tough question, but it is a little tough because each area is so different. But for most people, like a typical day is going to start getting water before it gets hot. It is very hot in Africa, and different places that I've been able to travel to, especially some of the rural areas. These women are getting up early to walk 3 miles to the watering hole, to the pump where they can pump water for their family, and then walk the 3 miles back with the water on their head, and it's extremely challenging, and then they have to repeat that throughout the day. So a lot of their days, especially in these rural areas, is focused on providing for their family, and water is one of those huge ways, and honestly, in a lot of areas, it's really tough to get. And so that's a typical day for a lot of women in some of these rural areas. In Kabwe, where I'll be living, it's a bit more built up. So I mean, even though they're so far away, it's hard to believe that they could live similarly to us, but a lot of their daily stuff is going to be similar to us. Obviously less extravagant, but they're just working and surviving and living life. Yeah.
Now you're going to be in a hotel there.
Yeah.
And how big is this hotel? I mean, we're used to some of the biggest hotels in the world here.
Yeah, I came from a property of about 4,000 to 5,000 rooms, and I will now be working at a hotel of 40 rooms. So it's just a little different. But we will be having a spa and a gym, pool area, and a restaurant with a small convention meeting space as well. So it provides something different than some of the other guest homes in the area.
Now, how big is the town that you're going to be in?
I don't really know the population. It's pretty decent. There's a lot of people living in a small space. So it's a large community, and it's going to be right off of that main road that I was sharing about. So a lot of transient people coming through.
So when you go to the supermarket, what's that like?
Well, you can go to the good old ShopRite, and that's just like a normal store, although they run out of a lot of stuff. So a lot of dairy products and meat stuff, that's really hard to get. But you can also go to the local markets, and that's fun because you get to see a lot of fresh produce, you get to meet people. There's lots of bright colors in Africa, so from what the women are wearing to the food that they're selling, it's very fresh, which is nice, especially because in Vegas we don't necessarily have all that fresh produce, but it's busy, active, yeah.
People everywhere.
Yes, yeah.
Wow. Yeah. What's the political climate like there?
It's pretty, they just had an election. I think it was last year when I was there getting ready to come back to the States, and it's kind of kind of like here. I mean, they have their two parties, and they have one guy he's been leading for years and years and years, and I think he just got reelected again. So it's usually one leader for a long amount of time, and it can get competitive, but it looks different because they don't have, we have all the social media and the media to rile us up, and they don't really have that there. So it's a little bit more peaceful, I would say.
So I would imagine that Zambia is much like the rest of Africa, where there's a lot of tribes, a lot of different tribes and groups that all have different, in many cases, different languages even.
Oh,
right?
yeah. Yeah, definitely.
So are there a lot of skirmishes and fights and little mini wars that go on?
I can't really say. There's so many neat and interesting cultures happening in Africa in general. And so when you look at a country, even within that country, like you said, there's all these different languages and different customs. And then at the center of all of it, there's a lot of similarities of food and culture and things like that. But a lot of my rural experiences were in places like Malawi and Tanzania, where in Tanzania you have very traditional African tribes. There's a tribe called the Maasai tribe, and they are so interesting because they have specific dress. They wear different things. They have their ears stretched out, and these facial tattoos. And I got to meet with some of these people, and they said that all originated from way back when, to basically protect themselves, to look scarier than they actually were, to show people, don't mess with us, we're scary, but actually they're really soft and sweet and gentle. And so it's neat when you get to dig into those cultures and learn about the people, and they become people, Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Well, tell us something about Africa that we don't know.
There's not just animals roaming around.
But there must be some animals.
There are, yes. And when you drive through like Botswana, there's elephants crossing the road, which is really amazing. It's really cool. And you can go to specific areas to see the animals more in their natural habitat, but still they're not just kind of roaming around. That's like the biggest thing. People think that you just sit around roaming with the elephants and the lions and eating bugs, and that's not necessarily. I think a lot of people would be surprised to see how built up Africa is, and even South Africa. I mean, that's where I lived for 2 years, and I have a lot of friends there that are South African, and they live like we do. They have, homes and malls and cars and all that. But South Africa can tend to be a little bit more on the dangerous side. There's a lot of walls, and like literal walls in front of the homes and businesses to kind of, as a precaution, to protect them. So.
And what side of the road do they drive on?
The opposite side of the road. Yeah, and you sit on the opposite side of the car as well. So even last week I was driving with someone, and I go to the car and I go to the wrong. I went to their side of the car. So even now, if I don't really think about it, I can do the opposite. So you have to be flexible and adjust to that when you're driving. But
yeah, I've done a little of that in other countries, and it's you have to really be.
You have to
cautious,
focus, and there is a sense of accomplishment when you realize I just drove on the other side of the road without like any problems, without hitting anything. So
Stephanie, you mentioned that part of that decision-making process was that you were single, and are you still single?
I am. Yeah, I'm mobile, so I'm moving. So Zambia is my place, and we'll see what happens. And
so for some handsome guy that's out there watching us, wants to be a missionary.
You're gonna make me blush now. Yeah. My focus is so much on where I'm going and what I'm doing that it'll happen when it happens. But it's good. And I think that's an encouragement. A lot of my single friends, when I came home, they were like, so does this mean you're going to be like a nun? Like, are you giving up on married life? And I'm like, no, like you could be serving the Lord and a husband can still come along. So for the single ones out there, it's actually a gift. It's a good thing to be able to be so free, because rewind a few years ago, I wouldn't have been able to leave for South Africa if I had a family. And so the Lord calls you to things in whatever season you're in.
So for someone that would like to visit you there, it's a little bit expensive to travel there, I would imagine.
Yeah, you can shop around, but it's going to be a little pricey,
$1,500
it's around,
maybe?
Yeah, around there. Maybe a little bit less for a round trip.
And how long is the airplane ride?
My flight is really long this time. It's about 40 hours, but normally it's like 30.
So you leave from Las Vegas, and where do you go?
Yeah, I'm actually, so this time I'm going to be in Orlando, so I'll fly out straight from Orlando and fly into Dubai and then into Zambia. So that's a really straight shot, actually. Normally you have to make a few stops, but
just
you just
one
watch,
stop.
yeah, you just watch a lot of movies and eat the food and relax, sleep a little, and it's okay. You get used to it, yeah.
So are you going to travel around to some other African countries?
I would love to, yeah. I've only been to about 4 or 5 countries, so it would be great to see some of those other, yeah. It's bigger than most people think, so to get from one country to the other is a journey.
So you're not just working there, you're actually a missionary, and that's really the overriding thing that you're doing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the big thing. And
Yeah.
so when you plan all this out, what are you thinking that you will be doing on the missionary side?
Yeah. So for me, the workplace is I'm going to be on mission there. So my goal really as the coming in to lead the hotel side of the property is to bring biblical truths, to bring what examples we have from the Bible and bring it into hospitality. So I've been looking up verses and stories about hospitality to explain to our staff, this is why we serve our guests, because of this. So connecting the Bible to the workplace is huge for me, and that for me every day is going to be missional. I'm also really excited about getting to partner with some organizations that are already out there doing work with schools and children and widows, and getting to help and support them with my free time, with my resources. So as people give, my goal is to really be able to then pour into what's happening in Zambia as well, and to just get involved. I'm there, so I want to make the most of it, and I love working with the kids in Africa, so getting to invest consistently will be something that I'm definitely going to look forward to.
Now, is there a church there that you're already a part of? Or?
Not yet.
No.
So the team that I'm working with, they've been living there, and they know the area, and they're plugged in, and so I would love to go to a local African church is different than anything else you've experienced. It's colorful and exciting and loud and very long, like 4 or 5 hours,
Really?
and it's just a whole cultural experience. So for me, I would love to go to a local African church, but I think they're plugged in, and so I'll see what's available when I get there.
So what's the language? What would they be speaking at that church? What language?
Bimba is the main language, but they have, like you said, so many different languages happening.
But Bimba's the national language, so everybody knows that as well as their own dialect.
And a lot of them know English, so I just need to learn fast or find friends that speak English.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens. Yeah.
So English is pretty predominant there.
Mostly with the younger people, and that's kind of anywhere when you travel. Mostly the older people will not know English, and the younger people will. So just finding.
So how
those
about
people.
Your smartphone? Does it work there?
It will, yes. You have to have an unlocked, international phone, and then it's pretty easy actually. Here it's a bit more complicated than it is in places like Africa. You just show up, get a SIM card, load it up with some talk time, and then you're good to go.
Okay.
It's the Wi-Fi. The Wi-Fi is the problem. You could talk, Wi-Fi is a little rough.
Yeah, so most people have a smartphone, or have a phone at least.
They have phones, yeah, and it's funny because you'll be in a village somewhere where they have no water, but then people will have cell phones. And you're like, okay. And they will actually, they have businesses because they don't have electricity in some places, and so they'll have to go to this guy's shop where he has like all these crazy things rigged up where he can charge your phone, and it takes like 2 days because he's charging like 20 phones at one time.
Yeah.
And then they make a living off of that. So people have cell phones, and you're thinking priorities, but okay.
Well, do something for me, if you would, when you're there. Yeah, I remember a few years ago we gave to a village that had no water, and they were doing the same thing. They were walking a couple of miles, to get water. And the cost to put in a well was, if I remember right, it was somewhere around $3,000, which we did, and it totally changed everybody in that village's life.
Yeah.
I mean, totally changed it because they had water right there. They didn't have to do all that, and you have multiple people doing that. I mean, think of all the man hours that were saved.
Oh, yeah.
And so see if you can find out how much it costs to actually put in a well in one of these villages.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a lot of people that we all know that would love to participate in a project
it's a
like
huge
that.
way to give, and it's not just giving once off. By doing that, it's providing for so many people over time. Yeah.
For generations, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it changes their life in incredibly positive ways.
Yeah.
And it really is about relationships. And when you're able to do something like that, people are a little happier to enter into a relationship, right?
Yeah, and it's nice to know, too, the people that you're going there to serve, because there is definitely this danger of going into a poor village and just throwing something at them, like throwing in the well or throwing in shoes for the whole village without getting to actually know the people or getting to see those faces of the people you're impacting. It makes such a difference, and it makes a difference for us at being the ones giving, but also for those who are receiving. We don't want to be known as the white people who just give stuff, and then that's always the expectation that if that person's here, then they're going to be giving me something. We really want to see that there's relationships being built, and that it's more than just the stuff, but the message behind all the stuff, So, yeah.
Absolutely. Well, what else do we need to know about Stephanie?
I don't know. We did a really good job of covering, I think.
Tell us something that nobody knows about you.
No way.
You won't tell anybody, I promise.
Yeah, it's private. No, I mean, I never thought that living and serving in Africa was ever going to be something that my life would take me. I never, even working at the hotel here locally, I never thought that was my future. A lot of times, because we live in a place where our college provides such a good education of hotel management and hospitality skills, that so many people from UNLV are coming into these hotels saying, my goal is to have my own Name Your Hotel in the future. They want to be these huge hotel owners, and I never, I just went to work at the hotel because I needed to pay my bills and needed to go to school. And it was never something that I said, this is what my dream. But then God just put that dream in front of me, and he dreamt that for me. And so I think sometimes we can limit ourselves, and being available and saying yes to things that maybe we're unsure of or never even thought were part of the plan can be such a huge blessing, further on down the line. And that we should be careful to assume where our life's taking us, and just be open and available. And it's been great to see and to challenge people on how they can. Not everyone has to go to Africa. Las Vegas, of all places, is a huge mission field. There's so many hurting and needing, so many people needing help, that wherever we are, no matter what profession we're in, whether you're a homeschool mom or you're a doctor or any of those different jobs, we can serve people wherever we are and bring the mission here. It doesn't have to be just giving up everything and moving to Africa. It can be here locally.
Absolutely. Well, Stephanie, you are such an inspiration, and
thank you.
And I know you inspire an awful lot of people around this part of the country.
Thank you.
And more to come.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
Well, let's give your email out one more time, because I know by now a lot of people are going to want to get on that list of yours so they can see what's going on.
More information. So my email is Stephanie, STEPHANIE .Martino, MARTINO @outlook.com.
Well, let's talk about, we only have a couple minutes left, but
Sure.
A typical family there, what kind of money do they make? What does it require for them to live?
Yeah, to compare our salary with theirs is almost impossible. They don't have a lot of the things that we have, so cost is so low for them, but yet sometimes they earn nothing. The unemployment rate is so high in a place like Zambia and all over Africa, and so they need very little to survive. They're used to surviving on very little, so most people make dollars.
Do they grow their own food? Is that how they?
Yeah, there's
feed themselves?
there's a lot of crops being made and done, and all of that, and they're providing for themselves. There's a lot of barter system type of thing happening. So if you have something, you can trade it for that, or trade your shirt for a bag of corn or whatever it is. So there's that, and there's not a lot of job opportunities, which I'm excited to then provide when I go with the hotel, to build a business where we can employ locals. But for us, $100 can go just such a long way for someone that could cover them for the month or two. $100.
Really?
Yeah. Our money is so valuable and multiplies, and things are cheap for them where they could survive.
So if someone got on your list and wanted to talk to you about maybe adopting a family there.
Yeah, we could definitely, I mean, that's something where I can connect people to the right people, and that's interesting because my experience with an organization in Zambia could now help us if people wanted to connect. I mean, it's a great way to serve people and love on them and help them with something so small. Like, that just means skipping out on a movie night every month, you know, and to be able to provide something so someone could, that's Starbucks or the movie, you know, movies are like $15 now, so that could support a whole family.
Yeah, well, Stephanie, it's just such a pleasure to know you and to be able to talk to you and get to know you a little more.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations. Thanks. And good luck, and we'll look forward to seeing you over there maybe.
Yeah,
right?
Thank you.
And we'll see you next week, same time, same place. Bye-bye, everybody.